You are welcome to this session 5 of Unit 2. In session 5, we are looking at the overview of international standards on auditing. Overview of international standards on auditing under Unit 2. And Unit 2 is talking about the regulatory framework of auditing. At the end of this session, these are the objectives we must achieve. You should be able to outline the international standards on auditing. You should be able to outline the international standards on auditing. Now, international standards on auditing. Say, auditing standards contain the basic principles and the essential procedures with which auditors are expected to comply. So, if we leave auditors, there is no standard regulating or guiding their activities. It will create confusion because what is they think they are doing or they have to do will not be what the clients who engage their services and require them or expect them to do. And we look at some of these things which result in the expectation gaps, and we talked about it in the previous sessions. Now, auditors are also supposed to comply with these basic principles outlined in the standard so that they will be able to arrive at a conclusion where they can give an opinion. Now, they going by this standard make them or ensures that they are giving an objective assessment so that anybody who takes that client and then follows the guidelines or the standards will be able to arrive at the same solution. Now, failure to comply with the standard may lead to regulatory sanctions by the relevant accountancy body, which might ultimately lead to the loss of the right to conduct company audit. Now, these standards, these rules and principles are very key that they must comply with. And in a situation where you fail to comply, it might result in certain consequences for you as an auditor. So you need to be abreast with the standard, what is required of you to do, and that. Now, quality control for firms that perform audits and review of historical financial information and then other assurance related services is one of the standards that must be looked at. Now, whatever service you are going to render, you have to ensure that the audit firm, the quality controls in that firm which qualify them to perform the audits are in place. And you also have to review the historical financial information and, as usual, any other assurance related services engagement. So make sure the quality controls are in place. You have to make sure that if you are reviewing historical information, you have enough information, and upon what basis are you doing that. And then if you have any other assurance and related service engagement, how are you performing that? What are the principles that are guiding that? What is the benchmark? What is the rules that guide whatever you are doing, so that at the end of the day you don't violate those principles which will result in certain consequences for you. Now, the audit and or the auditing standard basically have certain information. Just as we have the quality control, there are standards on quality control. When you come to the audit and review of the historical financial information, there are standards on it. When you come to the other assurance and audit related services, there are standards on it. So these areas, we have standards that regulate every activity that must be done. So, for example, when we take the audit and review of the historical financial information, there are quite a number of audit standards there. So when it take from 100 to 199, I talk about the introductory matters. So the standards that fall within this category talks about the introductory matters. When you take from 200 from 299, it talk about the general principles and responsibilities of the people required to perform the audit and even the client. Now, from 300 to 499 deals with the risk assessment and then the response to assessed risks. So, how auditors are going to assess risks and how they are going to respond to the risks that they have assessed. So, the standards that fall within this range deals with that. Now, between 500 and 599 talks about the audit evidence. Upon what evidence are you going to base your opinion on? So between 500 and 599, the standards that fall within here talks about the audit evidence. Now between 600 and 699 talk about the using work of others. So using work of others, here we look at it, the auditor relying on the work of others. It can be the work of experts, it can be the works of the internal auditor and co. So the standards that fall here talk about how and when you should rely on the works of others, or you can make use of them. Then from 700 to 799, talk about the audit conclusion and the reporting. Audit conclusion and reporting. After going through the introductory matters, the general principles and responsibility, you have been able to assess the risk and respond, and then you perform your audit, you gather evidence. Now you need to draw a conclusion and provide a report. So the standards that fall within 700 and 799 talks about the conclusion you have to give, the kind of report you have to give pertaining to the opinion. And then from 800 to 899 also talk about the specialized areas in the auditing. So when you are performing the audit, what are some of the specialized areas that you have to look at? And these standards from 800 to 899 talks about that. Now, from 1000 to 1100, talk about the International Auditing Practice Statement. The International Audit Practice Statement. So, any standard that ranges from 1000 to 1100 talks about the general theme or fall within the category the International Auditing Practice Statement. Now, from 2000 to 2699, talk about the international standards on review engagement. So when you are the auditor, you have been called to review certain work done by others. There are standards on that, how to go on the review engagement. So then we have from 3000 to 3699, talk about the international standards on assurance engagement. So sometimes you will be contracted to provide some sort of assurance engagement for the client, and then for whoever engages your services to provide this kind of assurance, you do that. And the standards, the range of standards dealing with that is from 3000 to 3699. Then we have from 4000 to 4699, talk about the international standard on related services. So you might go and perform some other related services in addition to the assurance engagement, in addition to the review engagement. So any other related services, there are standards regulating it and guiding how you should go about that. Now let's look at practice notes and bulletins. Practice notes and bulletin. So when we talk about practice notes and bullets, they indicate what is considered to be good practice. So what are the things considered to be a good practice in the profession? Now when we talk about these practice notes and bullets, they are persuasive rather than prescriptive. So what will persuade you to do what they think is good and that can be justified. Now, this practice notes and bullet point may be issued without the full consultation and exposure process that is used for auditing standards. So we can issue it without going through the full consultation process where you have to, especially when you are developing a standard, set the agenda, go through the exposure draft and all those one. With this one, it can be done without the full consultation and exposure process that has to pertain to auditing. Now, the Institute of Chartered Accountants, in collaboration with the Practice Society, issues practice note, and this is to assist auditors in applying auditing standards in particular circumstances and industries. So the institute also occasionally issues bulletin to provide auditors with timely guidance on new or emerging issues. So when there is a new development, the institution or the institute provide this bulletin and practice note as a guide to its members and associates. So basically, this is what a standard is about. We look at the international standards on auditing. We look at the review of it. So in summary, we've been able to look at the international standard on auditing, and we said that there is a need for standard to regulate the activities, and these standards serve as the basic principles that guide how auditors are to perform their service and co. And this can be grouped into what we call the quality control. We have the performing audit on the historic review of the historical financial information. We have standards on the audit related services and other engagement. So try as much as possible, read them, understand them, and when you are reading, look at the scope of the standard, look at the objective of the standard, what is it applied to, what is it not applied to, so that you get much understanding. Remember, you will not read one and get the concept. You have to read and read before you get the understanding. Thank you and see you in the next lecture.